My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. In the middle of the most important presentation of my career, I watched the screen light up with message after message. Chloe, I need $15,000 right now. Mom, your sister is in danger. You have to help her. Dad, if you don't send money today, we're selling the house and it's your fault. I excused myself from the conference room, my hands shaking as I read the texts. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting 9 months for. The moment that would prove everything I suspected about my family was true. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got here and why I was actually smiling as I read those desperate messages. Before I continue, if you've ever felt like an ATM machine to your own family, like your only value was what you could provide, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends, because trust me, you won't believe what happened next. And comment below if you've ever had to make an impossible choice between family and your own sanity. Now let me take you back to where this really began. My earliest memory of understanding I was different from Chloe wasn't dramatic. It was my 7th birthday. Mom had made a small chocolate cake, the kind from a box mix, and we sang happy birthday around our cramped kitchen table. I blew out the candles and made a wish. I wished for a bike, a red one I'd seen at Walmart with streamers on the handlebars. When I opened my present, it was a coloring book and a pack of crayons. Used crayons, I realized later, because some of them were already worn down to nubs. Mom saw my face fall and quickly said, "We'll get you something better next year, sweetie. Money's just tight right now." 2 months later was Chloe's 9th birthday. I watched from the doorway as she opened present after present. New clothes from the Gap, a Walkman with headphones, a collection of Beanie Babies that must have cost a fortune, and then wheeled out from the garage by Dad with a huge grin on his face, a beautiful purple bicycle with a white wicker basket and, yes, streamers on the handlebars. Chloe squealed with delight and hugged both our parents. I stood there in my faded hand-me-down dress, the one that used to be Chloe's, and I felt something crack inside my chest. When I asked Mom later why Chloe got so much more, she knelt down, put her hands on my shoulders, and looked me in the eyes with such sincerity that I almost believed her. "Sweetie, you're so strong and independent. You don't need as much attention as your sister. Chloe, she's more delicate, more sensitive. She needs extra love and support. You understand, don't you? You're my brave girl." I nodded because that's what you do when you're 7 and you want your mother's approval. I nodded and I swallowed down that hurt, and I told myself that being strong and independent was better than being delicate and sensitive. I told myself that for the next 25 years. The pattern was established early and never wavered. When I was 10, I wanted to take piano lessons. All my friends were taking lessons, and there was a beautiful upright piano at the community center where they offered classes for $20 a month. I saved up my allowance for 3 months, doing extra chores, helping neighbors with yard work, collecting bottles and cans for the deposit. When I finally had the $60 for 3 months of lessons, I presented it to Mom with such pride. She looked at the crumpled bills in my hand and sighed. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry, but we need this money for Chloe's dance recital costume. It's $200 and we're short. You don't mind helping your sister, do you? Family helps each other." I was 10 years old. I'd worked for 3 months, and I handed over my money without protest because that's what good daughters did. Chloe got her costume a sparkly pink confection with real sequins. She placed 3rd in her recital. I never did learn to play piano. When I was 13, I made the honor roll for the 3rd year in a row. I brought home my report card, all A's, so proud I could barely contain it. Dad glanced at it, said, "That's good, keep it up," and went back to watching television. The same week, Chloe brought home a report card with 3 B's, 2 C's, and a D in math. Mom threw her a celebration dinner, invited the grandparents, and bought her a new outfit as a reward for working so hard. I asked Dad about it later that night. Why Chloe got a party for C's when I got nothing for A's? He looked at me like I'd asked him to explain quantum physics. "Ava, you're smart. School is easy for you. For Chloe, every good grade is a struggle. We have to encourage her more. You don't need that encouragement. You've got it figured out." The message was clear. My success was expected unremarkable, unworthy of celebration. Chloe's mediocrity was an achievement to be rewarded. I learned to stop showing them my report cards. I learned to stop expecting recognition. I learned that my accomplishments made everyone uncomfortable because they highlighted Chloe's failures. High school was more of the same, only the stakes got higher. I worked part-time at a grocery store, bagging groceries and stocking shelves after school and on weekends. I saved every penny for college because I knew even at 15 that no one was going to help me. Chloe spent her high school years going to parties dating boys who treated her terribly and spending mom and dad's money at the mall every Saturday. She'd come home with bags from Abercrombie and Hollister while I wore thrift store jeans and clearance rack t-shirts. When I complained once, just once, Mom got angry with me. "Why are you so jealous of your sister? It's not attractive, Ava. You're better than this pettiness." Jealousy. That's what they called it when I pointed out the inequality. Not injustice, not favoritism, not cruelty. Jealousy, as if my hurt was a character flaw. I learned to keep my mouth shut. Senior year, I applied to 15 colleges, wrote dozens of scholarship essays, and worked myself to exhaustion trying to make my application stand out. I was applying to state schools, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just somewhere that would give me an education and a way out. When the acceptance letters came, I'd gotten into 12 of the 15 schools. I'd also been awarded a partial scholarship that would cover about 60% of tuition at the state university 2 hours away. I needed to cover room board, books, and the remaining tuition. I'd saved $8,000 from 2 years of working. I needed another $6,000 to make the first year work. I asked my parents if they could help with anything, even just $1,000. We were sitting at the dinner table and I'd prepared a whole presentation. I had spreadsheets showing my budget, my work schedule, my plan to work part-time during college. I explained how this was an investment in my future, how I'd pay them back, how important this was to me. Dad barely looked up from his pot roast. "We don't have that kind of money lying around, Ava. You'll have to figure it out." I nodded, swallowed the lump in my throat, and started to clear my plate. Then Chloe spoke up. "Actually, I've been thinking about college too. There's this school in California right by the beach. It's private, but they have a really good communications program." I watched my parents' faces light up. Mom actually clapped her hands together. "Oh, honey, that sounds wonderful. We'll make it work. We can take out loans if we need to." The school Chloe was talking about cost $50,000 a year. She had a 2.4 GPA. She hadn't taken the SAT yet because she kept forgetting to sign up. But sure, they'd make it work for her. I excused myself from the table, went to my room, and cried silently into my pillow for 2 hours. Then I dried my face, updated my resume, and applied for 3 more jobs. I ended up working at the grocery store during the day, waitressing at a diner on weekend nights, and cleaning houses every Sunday morning. I slept 4 hours a night my senior year. I made my $6,000. College was supposed to be my escape. I was finally going to be away from the constant comparisons, the endless feeling of being less than. But geography doesn't eliminate obligation. I'd been at school for exactly 2 weeks when I got the first call. It was Mom, and she was crying. "Honey, I hate to ask, but we're in a bind. Chloe's car broke down and the repairs are $1,800. We just don't have it right now. Could you help us out? We'll pay you back next month when Dad gets his bonus." I had $2,200 in my bank account. That was my food money for the semester, my books, my emergency fund. But it was Mom she was crying, and I couldn't say no. I sent the $1,800. They never paid me back. Dad's bonus went to a down payment on a new car for Chloe because apparently her old one wasn't worth fixing after all. They'd known that when they asked me for the money. The calls continued throughout my college years. Always emergencies, always urgent. The water heater broke. The roof needed repairs. Chloe needed money for textbooks even though she was at home attending community college now after the California dream had fallen apart in the first semester. Chloe needed a deposit for an apartment. Chloe needed money for a security clearance for a job she never ended up getting. Chloe got in a fender bender and needed to pay the deductible. I worked 3 jobs every semester, took out the maximum in student loans, and still sent home at least $500 a month. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. I never went out with friends because I couldn't afford it. I studied in my dorm room while everyone else was at parties because I was working or too exhausted from working. I graduated with a 3.9 GPA, $30,000 in student loan debt, and a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. Meanwhile, Chloe dropped out of community college after 2 years, moved back home, and worked sporadically at retail jobs that she'd quit after a few months whenever she decided the manager was mean or the hours were inconvenient. My first real job out of college was at a marketing firm in Chicago. The salary was $45,000 a year, which seemed like all the money in the world until I calculated my student loan payments, rent, utilities, food, and transportation. I was left with about $300 a month for everything else. I should have been saving for retirement, building an emergency fund, maybe even enjoying my 20s a little. Instead, that $300 and often more went home. Mom would call with what became a familiar script. She'd ask how I was, but not really listen to the answer. She'd tell me about Chloe's latest crisis, making it sound both dire and somehow Chloe's fault in a way that absolved her of responsibility but demanded my intervention. Then came the ask, always framed as temporary, always with a promise of repayment, always with an undercurrent of obligation and guilt. Your sister is about to be evicted. She's 2 months behind on rent. She's trying so hard, but her boss cut her hours and she's just having such bad luck. We'd help her, but we're stretched so thin. You know we'd do it if we could. You're doing so well in Chicago with your fancy job. Could you spare $1,000 just this once? The fancy job barely covered my own rent, but I'd send the $1,000 because what was the alternative? Let my sister be homeless. Every time I sent money, I told myself this was the last time. Every time I was wrong. The requests got bigger, more frequent, more demanding. They weren't even always framed as requests anymore. Dad started calling them my family obligations. As in, Ava, your mother needs $1,500 for her dental work. That's your family obligation. As in, Chloe needs a new computer for her job search. Take care of your family obligation. It stopped being about emergencies and started being about convenience. Chloe wanted to go on vacation with her friends. Could I chip in $1,000? Mom wanted to redecorate the living room. Could I send $2,000? Dad's truck was running fine, but he wanted a newer model. Could I help with the down payment? When I started saying no more often, the tone of the calls changed. Mom got weepy. I can't believe my own daughter would be so selfish. After all we sacrificed to raise you. We didn't have to do that, you know. We could have given you up for adoption. We chose to keep you, and this is how you repay us. Dad got angry. You think you're too good for your family now. You think because you went to college and got some office job that you're better than us. You remember where you came from, girl. Chloe was the worst. She'd call me drunk at 2 a.m, crying and screaming about how I'd ruined her life by being the perfect daughter. How everyone always compared her to me and she couldn't take it anymore. How the least I could do was help her financially since I'd already stolen all the emotional resources. The manipulation was so skillful, so practiced, that I started to believe them. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I did owe them. Maybe my success was somehow built on their suffering. I started seeing a therapist in my late 20s covered by my work insurance. Dr. Patterson was a kind woman in her 60s who listened to me describe my family situation with an increasingly concerned expression. After 3 sessions, she said something that stopped me cold. Ava, you're describing financial abuse. What your family is doing to you is a form of exploitation. I actually laughed. It's not abuse, I said. They're just going through hard times. Family helps family. She leaned forward. Do they ask about your hard times, about your struggles? Do they care that you're in debt, that you can't save money, that you're sacrificing your own financial security for them? I opened my mouth to say yes, of course they did, and realized I couldn't. They didn't know I had student loans because I'd never told them. Why? Because I knew if they knew I had debt, they'd use it as an excuse not to pay me back. They didn't know I lived in a studio apartment in a sketchy neighborhood because I couldn't afford anything better. They thought I had a fancy apartment to match my fancy job. I'd let them believe it because their pride in my success, shallow as it was the only approval I ever got. They knew nothing about my life beyond what I could provide for them. Dr. Patterson gave me homework. She told me to start documenting every financial request, every interaction with my family, and to write down how each interaction made me feel. I started keeping a spreadsheet. The numbers were staggering. In the 8 years since graduating college, I had given my family $123,000, not lent. Given. I'd asked for repayment exactly 47 times in those 8 years. I'd been repaid once for $200, which Mom had borrowed back 3 weeks later for Chloe's car insurance. I was 30 years old, making $70,000 a year after 2 promotions, and I had $800 in savings. $800. Most financial advisors recommended having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. I had enough for about 2 weeks if I lost my job. I should have been angry looking at those numbers. Instead, I felt ashamed. Ashamed that I'd let it happen. Ashamed that I'd been so weak, ashamed that I was even thinking this way about my family. The shame kept me trapped for 2 more years. Every time I thought about setting boundaries, I'd hear Mom's voice. Blood is thicker than water. Family is forever. We're all you've got. Every time I thought about saying no, I'd imagine Chloe, homeless mom, suffering, dad struggling, and I'd break down and send money I didn't have. I took out credit cards to cover my own expenses. I skipped meals to make rent. I told myself that this was temporary, that eventually they'd get on their feet and I wouldn't have to help anymore. The wake-up call came on my 32nd birthday. I was alone in my apartment because I couldn't afford to go out, and I'd told my friends I had the flu rather than admit I was broke. My phone rang at 7 p.m. It was Mom, and for a moment my heart lifted. She remembered my birthday. She was calling to wish me happy birthday. "Ava, honey, I'm so glad I caught you." Her voice was bright, cheery. "Listen, Chloe found the most amazing apartment. It's perfect for her, but she needs first and last month's rent plus deposit. That's $4,500. She needs it by tomorrow or she'll lose the place. I know it's last minute, but you're so good at figuring these things out. Can you wire the money tonight?" I waited for her to wish me happy birthday. She didn't. She just kept talking about Chloe's apartment, about how this was going to be the thing that finally got Chloe on the right track, about how important it was that family support, family. I interrupted her. "Mom, do you know what today is?" There was a pause. "Tuesday," she said, confused. "It's my birthday." Another pause longer this time. Then, "Oh, honey, of course happy birthday. I can't believe I forgot. We've just been so stressed about Chloe's situation. You understand. So about that money, can you send it tonight?" I sent the money. Then I hung up, sat on my bathroom floor and cried until I threw up. That was the moment I knew something had to change. I just didn't know how. 6 months later, I was having the worst Tuesday of my life. My boss had eviscerated my work in front of the entire team during our morning meeting. My car had gotten towed from the parking garage because I'd forgotten to renew the monthly pass, and the retrieval fee was $300 I didn't have. My credit card had been declined at lunch. And then the trifecta of terrible 3 texts came through in rapid succession. "Mom, Chloe is in trouble again. She owes money to some bad people. We need $5,000 today. This is serious. Dad, your mother and I expect you to handle this situation with your sister. Don't make us beg. Chloe, if you don't help me, I don't know what I'm going to do. These guys know where I live. This is your fault for not helping me sooner." I was standing on the corner outside my office building reading these texts when something inside me snapped. Not dramatically, just a quiet, definitive break. I was done. I couldn't do this anymore. I wouldn't survive if I kept doing this. I walked instead of taking the train because I needed to move, needed to think. I walked for miles through Chicago streets, not caring where I was going. When I finally looked up, I was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. I was standing in front of a gas station, and there was a man coming out clutching a lottery ticket, grinning ear to ear like he'd already won. I watched him walk to his car, and something possessed me. I walked into that gas station, and I bought a Powerball ticket. One ticket. $5 that should have gone toward the towing fee. I didn't check the numbers. I didn't think about odds. I just folded that ticket into my wallet and forgot about it. That night, I texted Mom back. "I don't have $5,000. I can't help." For the first time in my adult life, I said no and didn't immediately follow it with an apology or an explanation or a smaller offer. Just no. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails, all of them escalating from guilt trips to anger to threats. I turned off my phone and went to bed. I slept for 11 hours straight. When I woke up, I felt different. Not better exactly, just different, like I'd jumped off a cliff and was still waiting to hit the ground. 3 days after that, I was eating a sad desk lunch, scrolling mindlessly through news on my phone when I saw the headline about the Powerball winner. $650 million jackpot. One winning ticket sold in Chicago. My heart rate didn't even spike. I'd forgotten all about my ticket, but something made me pull out my wallet, unfold that wrinkled piece of paper, and look up the winning numbers. First number matched. Probably a coincidence. Second number matched. Third number, fourth, fifth. My vision started to tunnel. The Powerball number. It matched. All of them matched. Every single number matched. I was having a heart attack. That's what it felt like. My chest was tight, my hands were numb, my ears were ringing. I looked around at the break room, wildly certain that someone would see what I was holding, would know what had just happened, would ruin this before I even understood it myself. But Janet was just microwaving her lean cuisine, talking on the phone to her mom about her son's soccer practice. Mark was reading something on his iPad, chuckling to himself. Nobody was paying any attention to me. I folded the ticket carefully, put it back in my wallet, and walked to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and sat down fully clothed on the toilet seat, staring at the gray metal door in front of me. $12 million. After taxes, after the lump sum reduction, approximately $7.4 million. I should have been ecstatic. I should have been screaming with joy. Instead, I felt cold dread settling into my bones, because I knew exactly what would happen if I told my family. This wouldn't be my miracle. It would be theirs. They would descend on me like locusts, and they wouldn't stop until every penny was gone. Mom would need a new house. Dad would need a new truck, maybe two. Chloe would need cars, apartments, vacations, clothes, jewelry, and probably a business investment that would fail within 6 months. There would be no boundaries, no gratitude, no end. Just an escalation of demands until I was broke again, except this time I wouldn't have youth and energy on my side to rebuild. I sat in that bathroom stall for 45 minutes thinking. People probably came and went, but I didn't hear them. I was calculating, planning, trying to figure out what to do with this thing that had fallen into my lap like a live grenade. I could tell them, give them what they wanted, play the role of dutiful daughter and sister one last time on the biggest possible scale. It would make them happy for a while at least, until the money ran out. Or I could run, take the money and disappear, change my name, move across the country, cut all ties, never speak to my family again, start completely over. The nuclear option. Or I could do something else, something calculated. I could use this money as a tool to finally definitively answer the question that had been gnawing at me for years. Did my family love me? Had they ever loved me? Or had I always just been a resource to exploit? I could test them. Keep the money secret and watch how they treated me when they thought I couldn't help them anymore. Watch who they really were when the pressure was on and there was nothing to gain from being kind to me. The idea was so clear, so perfect, that it felt like destiny. This wasn't random chance. This was an opportunity for truth. I left work early claiming a migraine. I went home and started researching. I searched for lawyers who specialized in lottery winnings, who understood privacy and trusts, and how to claim anonymously. I read horror stories about lottery winners whose families destroyed them, whose friends became enemies, whose lives fell apart under the weight of sudden wealth and everyone else's expectations. I read about smart winners who'd done it right, who'd built teams and set boundaries and protected themselves. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a notebook, making plans until the sun came up. By the next morning, I had a short list of 3 lawyers. I called the first one at 9 a.m. sharp. His name was Marcus Thorne, and his assistant said he could see me that afternoon if it was urgent. I told her it was extremely urgent. Marcus's office was in a gleaming downtown high-rise, the kind of building I'd only ever entered for job interviews. The lobby had actual art on the walls, not prints, but original paintings. The elevator was so smooth I barely felt it moving. When I reached his floor, I was shaking again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was determination. Marcus was tall, probably in his mid-50s, with silver hair and sharp gray eyes that seemed to take in everything about me in the first 3 seconds. His handshake was firm but not crushing. Professional. He gestured me to a leather chair across from his massive desk and sat down, folding his hands in front of him. So, Ms. Harrison, my assistant said you needed urgent help with a sensitive matter. I assume you've won the lottery. I must have looked shocked because he smiled slightly. In 20 years of practice, I've had this meeting 73 times. You all have the same expression, terror disguised as excitement. You're here because you know this money is going to complicate your life, and you're smarter than most because you're here before you've told anyone. Am I correct? I nodded, unable to form words. He leaned back. Good. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your life, your family, your financial situation, everything. I can't help you if I don't understand your full picture. I told him everything. It took 2 hours. He didn't interrupt once, just took notes in a leather-bound notebook with a fountain pen. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me with something that might have been pity if it hadn't been wrapped in such professional detachment. Ms. Harrison, what you've described is a textbook case of financial abuse and exploitation. Your family has conditioned you to believe that your value lies entirely in what you can provide for them. They've trained you like a dog to respond to guilt and obligation. And now you have $7 million that they don't know about. He paused. Let that sink in. You have 2 options. Option 1 is to tell them set firm boundaries with legal documentation and hope they respect those boundaries. Based on what you've told me, they won't. They'll push and manipulate and eventually wear you down, and you'll give them everything just to make it stop. Option 2 is to keep this secret and use it as leverage to protect yourself. To observe them without the dynamic of financial dependency, to see who they really are when they can't get what they want from you. I'm going to assume you're here because you're considering option 2. I nodded again. My throat was too tight to speak. Marcus continued, If you want to go that route, here's what I recommend. We claim your winnings through a blind trust. Your name never appears anywhere publicly. We set up a financial structure that protects your assets. You continue your regular life for at least a year. During that time, you document every interaction with your family. You maintain your current level of giving or even less. You watch. You take notes. And at the end of that year, you'll have a clear picture of who these people are. Then you make your decision about whether they deserve to be part of your life going forward. Does that sound like something you want to do? It sounded terrifying. It sounded calculating. It sounded like something a good person wouldn't do. But I'd been a good person my entire life, and where had it gotten me? Broke, exhausted, and utterly alone, despite being surrounded by family. Yes, I whispered. That's exactly what I want to do. Marcus smiled, a real smile this time. Excellent. Let's get started. First thing we do is claim the ticket. Then we build your team. You'll need a financial advisor and accountant, and I'm also going to recommend a therapist who specializes in sudden wealth and family dynamics. You're about to go through something very difficult, Ms. Harrison. You're going to see things you don't want to see. You're going to learn truths that will hurt. You need support. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus orchestrated everything. The ticket was validated through a trust called the Harbor Asset Group. My name appeared nowhere. The local news ran stories about the mysterious Chicago winner who'd chosen to remain anonymous. There was speculation about whether it was a wealthy businessman, a syndicate of co-workers, an immigrant with a hard luck story. No one guessed it was a 32-year-old marketing manager living in a studio apartment in Ukrainian village, eating pasta for dinner 4 nights a week. Marcus introduced me to Sharon Chin, a financial advisor who specialized in sudden wealth management. Sharon was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She looked at my financial picture and winced. Okay, first thing we're doing is getting you out of debt, she said. All of it, credit cards, student loans, everything. You're starting fresh. Second, we're building you a real emergency fund. 6 months of expenses liquid accessible. Third, we're investing the bulk of this in a diversified portfolio that will generate passive income so you never have to worry about money again. You're going to live off the interest and growth, not the principal. This money is going to last you the rest of your life and probably your children's lives if you have them. The reality started to sink in. I was rich, not fantasy rich, not buy a yacht rich, but secure. Forever secure. Never worry about rent again secure. Never send grocery money home secure. never take out a credit card to cover my family's emergency secure. Marcus also connected me with Dr. Patricia Reeves, a psychologist who worked specifically with lottery winners and inheritance recipients. Dr. Reeves was in her late 60s, grandmotherly, but sharp, with an office that felt more like a cozy living room than a clinical space. In our first session, she said something that made me cry. "Ava, I want you to understand that you're about to grieve. Even though nothing bad has happened, even though you just won millions of dollars, you're going to grieve. You're going to grieve the family you thought you had. You're going to grieve the relationships you hoped were real. And that grief is valid." She was right. Even before I did anything, even before the testing began, I was already mourning. The plan was set. 1 year of observation. I would continue my job, my regular life, but I'd set different boundaries around money. I'd give less say, no more, and watch how they reacted. I'd document everything in a journal that Dr. Reeves suggested I keep. At the end of the year, I'd evaluate whether these were relationships worth keeping. If they loved me, really loved me, it would show. If they only loved what I could give them, that would show too. Marcus had one final piece of advice before I left his office that first day. "Remember, Ava, money doesn't change people. It reveals who they've always been. You're about to see your family's true faces. Be prepared for that revelation to hurt." The first test came quickly, just 3 days after I'd officially claimed my winnings. It was Mom's 58th birthday, and traditionally, I'd take her out to dinner somewhere nice and give her a gift in the $300 to $400 range. This year, I made a reservation at a mid-range Italian place and bought her a cashmere scarf from Nordstrom Rack. Nice, but nothing extravagant. When I picked her up, she was wearing a new dress expensive from the look of it and new jewelry. "Don't you look nice?" I said. She preened. "Oh, Chloe took me shopping yesterday. Said I deserved something special for my birthday. She's so thoughtful." At dinner, Mom opened her gift from Chloe first. It was presented in Tiffany wrapping, and I knew immediately that Mom had bought it herself. She opened the box to reveal a diamond bracelet, delicate but real. Mom gasped, actual tears forming. "Oh, Chloe, you shouldn't have. This is too much." Chloe, who'd barely looked up from her phone since we sat down, smiled. "Only the best for my mom." The irony was so thick I could taste it. I'd seen Mom and Dad's credit card statements often enough to know they were maxed out. This bracelet was either bought on credit they couldn't afford, or more likely with money I'd sent home for some emergency that hadn't actually existed. When Mom opened my gift, the change in her expression was almost comical. She held up the scarf, turned it over like she was inspecting it for defects, and gave me a tight smile. "How lovely. Thank you, Ava." She set it aside immediately and turned back to admiring the bracelet. Throughout dinner, she wore the bracelet, showing it to our server, taking photos for Facebook. The scarf stayed in its box. After we'd ordered dessert, Mom excused herself to the restroom, and Chloe finally looked up from her phone long enough to speak to me. "So, working hard?" Her tone was mocking. "Yeah, pretty busy," I said neutrally. "Must be nice having all that career girl money while some of us are struggling." I didn't take the bait. "I'm getting by." She snorted. "Whatever. Hey, since you're here, I need to talk to you about something. My rent is going up next month. An extra $200 a month. I'm already stretched thin." Here it came, the real reason for this birthday dinner. "That's tough," I said. "Have you thought about getting a roommate?" Her face darkened. "I can't live with a roommate. I need my space. I need my privacy. You don't understand what it's like to work retail. It's exhausting. I can't come home to some stranger in my face." "What about finding a cheaper place?" Chloe's voice got louder. Several people at nearby tables glanced over. "Why should I have to downgrade my life because I don't make as much money as you? That's not fair. We're sisters. You're supposed to help me." Before I could respond, Mom returned from the bathroom and the conversation stopped. But as we were leaving, Mom pulled me aside in the parking lot. Her voice dropped to that particular tone she used when she wanted something sweet, but with an edge of desperation underneath. "Honey, I need to talk to you about Chloe. She's really struggling right now. The rent increase is real, and she's already working so hard. Could you help her out?" Maybe just cover the difference for a few months until she can find something better paying. I felt the old familiar pull, the guilt, the obligation. But I'd prepared for this. I'd rehearsed with Dr. Reeves. Mom, I can give her $200 this month. That's what I can afford. Mom's face changed. The sweetness evaporated like morning dew. 200, Ava. She needs 200 a month for at least 6 months. $1,200 total. You make good money. Don't be selfish. There it was. Selfish. The word that had controlled me for years. I have my own bills, Mom. 200 is what I can do. I wrote a check right there, handed it to Mom, and kissed her on the cheek. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Her response was cold. Thanks for dinner. She walked to her car without another word. Chloe didn't even say goodbye. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before driving home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The warmth Mom had shown when she thought I'd give more, the immediate coldness when I set a boundary, it was so transparent now that I was looking for it. That night, I wrote my first journal entry. Test 1, Mom's birthday. Observations: Chloe's gift was likely purchased by Mom and Dad on credit. Mom showed immediate disappointment with my gift once she realized it wasn't expensive. Chloe and Mom tag-teamed a request for money during what was supposed to be a celebration. When I offered less than requested, Mom's demeanor turned cold. No appreciation was expressed for the dinner or the gift I did give. Conclusion: interaction was transactional. Affection was conditional on financial contribution. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Dad at 7 in the morning. Come over tonight. We need to talk about your mother. The message sent ice through my veins. I called immediately. Dad, what's wrong with Mom? Is she okay? His voice was gruff. She's fine. Just come over at 6. Don't be late. I spent the whole day anxious, unable to focus at work, imagining scenarios. When I arrived at my parents' house that evening, they were both sitting in the living room with serious expressions. Chloe was there too, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. This was an ambush. Sit down, Ava, Dad said, gesturing to the armchair across from them. I sat. My heart was pounding. Your mother and I have been talking and we're concerned about you. I blinked. Concerned about me? Mom leaned forward, her face arranged in an expression of motherly worry. Honey, we've noticed you've been different lately, distant, not as generous with your family as you used to be. We're worried you might be having money problems or maybe you're depressed. Have you been seeing someone? Therapy can really help. The gaslighting was masterful. They were framing my new boundaries as a mental health crisis. I'm not depressed, I said carefully. I'm just trying to be more responsible with my finances. Dad snorted. Responsible? You're being stingy. Your sister needs help and you're nickel and diming her. We raised you better than that. Chloe jumped in right on cue. I don't understand why you're being like this. I've never done anything to you. I've always been there for you. That was such a blatant lie that I almost laughed. Chloe had never been there for me a single day in her life, but I kept my face neutral. I gave Chloe $200 2 weeks ago. I'm helping where I can. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time, I think, but tears of frustration rather than sadness. $200. Your sister needs consistent support, not token gestures. Ava, I don't know what's happened to you, but this isn't the daughter I raised. The daughter I raised understood family obligations. She understood loyalty. There was that word again. Obligations, as if I'd signed a contract at birth to fund everyone else's lives forever. I have been loyal, I said quietly. I've given you over $100,000 in the past decade. I think I've more than fulfilled any obligations. The number hung in the air. I'd never said it out loud before, never confronted them with the total. I watched their faces. Dad looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Chloe went pale. Then Dad recovered. That's what family does. We help each other. Did we charge you rent when you lived here? Did we make you pay us back for raising you? No. Because that's what parents do. And now it's your turn to help us. The revisionist history was breathtaking. They absolutely had made me feel like I owed them for raising me. That had been the foundation of every guilt trip for years. I have been helping you. I'm just setting some limits now. Mom stood up, her voice rising. Limits on family. What kind of person sets limits on helping their own mother and father and sister? She was working herself up into a full performance now. You've changed, Ava. You've become hard, cold. I don't even recognize you anymore. This city has turned you into someone selfish and cruel. Chloe started crying loud, theatrical sobs. I knew it! I knew you'd abandon me eventually. You've always thought you were better than me, and now you're proving it. I stood up. I'm not doing this. I came here because Dad said it was an emergency. This is just another attempt to guilt me into giving you money. I'm leaving. Dad's voice thundered through the room. You walk out that door and you're showing us exactly who you are. You're showing us that you don't give a damn about your family. I turned to face him. I've shown you who I am for 32 years. I've been there every single time you called. Every emergency, every crisis, every request. I've sacrificed my own financial security to prop all of you up. And not once, not one single time have any of you asked how I was doing. If I needed help. If I was okay. The room went silent. Mom's tears stopped. Chloe's sobs cut off mid-gasp. Dad just stared at me. I'd never talked back like this before. Never pointed out the inequality. Never called them out. I love you, I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it despite everything. But I need to take care of myself. I can't keep being your emergency fund. I'm sorry. I walked out. Behind me, Mom started crying again, real crying this time, and I heard Dad say something about ungrateful children. I drove home with tears streaming down my face, but I didn't turn around. Journal entry 2. The intervention. Observations. Parents staged a coordinated confrontation disguised as concern for my well-being. They framed healthy boundaries as mental illness or character defects. When confronted with the actual amount I've given over the years, there was momentary shock but no remorse or gratitude. Dad used threats of abandonment to try to control my behavior. No one asked about my needs, my struggles, or my well-being beyond how it affected my ability to provide for them. Conclusion. The relationship is entirely one-directional. I exist to serve their needs. I didn't hear from anyone for 3 weeks after that. The silence was both a relief and a source of anxiety. Part of me wondered if I'd been too harsh, if I should apologize, if I should reach out. Dr. Reeves talked me down from that ledge in our weekly session. Ava, they're giving you the silent treatment. It's a manipulation tactic. They're waiting for you to break to come crawling back with apologies and money. Don't do it. Let them sit in this discomfort. See what they do next. What they did next was send Chloe. She showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning looking wan and exhausted. When I opened the door, she burst into tears. Ava, please, I need to talk to you. Can I come in? Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my couch crying into her hands, and for a moment I felt that old familiar sympathy. This was my little sister. We used to play together as kids. There were good memories, weren't there? Somewhere beneath all this dysfunction, hadn't we once loved each other? I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry for how I acted. You're right. We've been taking advantage of you. I see that now. I sat down across from her, wary. Chloe, I appreciate you saying that. She looked up, her face blotchy and red. I've been thinking a lot since that night at Mom and Dad's, about all the times you helped me, and I never even said thank you. About how I've always just assumed you'd be there to bail me out. That wasn't fair. This was unexpected. Was this genuine? Had my standing up to them actually made Chloe reflect, I want to do better, she continued. I want to have a real relationship with you, not one based on money. Can we start over? I felt hope bloom in my chest, dangerous and fragile. I'd like that. She smiled through her tears. Me too. I really mean it, Ava. You're my sister and I love you. We talked for an hour. She asked about my job, my life, my interests. She told me about her struggles with work and relationships. It felt real. It felt like the sister I'd always wanted to have. When she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I felt lighter than I had in months. 3 days later, she texted me, "Hey sis, I hate to ask, but my car died completely. Won't start. Mechanic says it needs a new transmission. $3,500. I know I said I wouldn't ask for money, but this is an emergency. I can't get to work without a car. I'll pay you back, I promise." I stared at that text for a long time. The hope in my chest shriveled and died. She'd played me. The whole tearful apology, the promises of a better relationship, it had all been a setup, a way to soften me up so I'd be more likely to say yes to the next request. And what made it worse is that it had almost worked. I texted back, "I can give you $200 toward the repair. That's what I can do." Her response was immediate. "Are you kidding me, $200? How is that supposed to help? I just poured my heart out to you and you're still being cheap." I waited a minute, then typed, "I thought we were starting over. A relationship not based on money, remember?" Her next message made my stomach turn. "Yeah, well, I thought you actually cared about me." "Guess I was wrong. You're still the same selfish bitch you've always been. Don't bother reaching out again." Journal Entry 3. Chloe's Fake Apology. Observations. Chloe arrived with a prepared script designed to appeal to my emotions and desire for family connection. She asked questions about my life, but didn't absorb or remember the answers. The entire visit was a setup for a large financial request 3 days later. When I set a boundary, she immediately reverted to insults and cut off contact. Conclusion. The apology was not genuine. The request for money was the true motivation for re-establishing contact. The months that followed a similar pattern. Every 6 to 8 weeks, there would be a new crisis, a new emergency, a new demand. Dad needed dental work. Mom's car needed repairs. Chloe's apartment was infested with bedbugs, and she needed money to replace her furniture. Each time I gave small amounts, never enough to actually solve the problem, just enough to maintain the appearance of trying. And each time, my family's responses ranged from disappointed to hostile. The grateful daughter-sister they'd conditioned me to be was gone, and they didn't know what to do with this new version who said no. In June, 4 months into my experiment, something interesting happened. My company threw a big summer party for employees and their families. It was at a fancy venue open bar, catered food, live music. I hadn't been planning to go because the thought of being around happy families made me feel hollow, but my coworker Diana convinced me. "Come on, it'll be fun. You can meet my wife and kids. We'll drink too much and talk shit about management." So I went. I was standing by the bar nursing a glass of wine when I saw a woman about my age struggling to carry 3 plates of food while her 2 kids ran circles around her legs. Without thinking, I stepped in. "Can I help?" She looked up grateful and exhausted. "Oh my God, yes, please. Thank you." I carried one of the plates and helped her get her kids settled at a table. We started talking. Her name was Rebecca. She was an accountant for a different company, but her husband worked in our IT department. Her kids were 6 and 8 wild bundles of energy and joy. We ended up talking for 2 hours. She told me about the juggling act of working full-time with 2 kids, about how she and her husband tag-teamed parenting duties, about their struggles to make ends meet in an expensive city. I told her about my job, about my love of hiking, about my complicated relationship with my family. I didn't tell her about the money, of course, but I told her enough. At the end of the night, she gave me her number. "We should get coffee sometime. I'm always looking for new friends, and you seem really genuine." It was such a simple thing, but genuine. When was the last time someone had described me that way? Rebecca and I did get coffee, and then we got coffee again and again. She introduced me to her friend group, other working moms and professional women who got together monthly for book club and wine. They welcomed me without hesitation. They asked about my life and actually listened to the answers. They shared their own struggles and victories. No one asked me for money. No one expected me to solve their problems. They just wanted my company. For the first time in years, I had real friends, people who liked me for me. It highlighted just how transactional my family relationships were. When I was with Rebecca and her friends, I felt relaxed, valued, seen. When I dealt with my family, I felt tense, defensive, like I was constantly bracing for the next demand. The contrast was stark and painful. Around this same time, something else happened that crystallized everything. It was late July, oppressively hot. I was walking home from the train when I passed a homeless woman sitting outside a convenience store. She had a sign that read, "Medical bills, anything helps." Without thinking, I stopped. "Are you okay?" I asked. She looked up surprised. "Been better. Got diagnosed with diabetes, but I can't afford my insulin. Trying to scrape together enough to not die this month." I sat down next to her right there on the hot pavement. "How much do you need?" She looked at me like I was crazy. "For a month of supplies, maybe $200, but that's a lot, I know. Anything you can spare helps." I pulled out my wallet and handed her $400 in cash. Her eyes went wide. "I can't take this. This is too much." I closed her hand around the money. "Take it. Get 2 months of supplies. Please." She started crying. "Why, you don't even know me." I thought about that question. "Because you need help and I can help. That's all the reason I need." We talked for 20 minutes. Her name was Patricia. She'd been a nurse before health problems and medical debt destroyed her finances. She'd lost her apartment, her car, everything. But she was trying to get back on her feet, working odd jobs when she could, sleeping in a shelter most nights. When I left, she hugged me and said, "You're an angel. Thank you. I won't forget this." Walking home, I realized something profound. I'd just given $400 to a complete stranger and felt nothing but good about it. Meanwhile, giving $200 to my own sister had left me feeling resentful and used. The difference wasn't the money, it was the relationship. Patricia was grateful. Chloe was entitled. Patricia needed actual help. Chloe wanted a free ride. Patricia would use the money for survival. Chloe would use it for comfort. The realization was devastating and liberating at the same time. In August, Chloe announced she was getting engaged. The Facebook post was elaborate professional photos of her and a man I'd never heard of, both of them on a beach at sunset, her hand extended to show off a ring. Congratulations poured in from relatives and friends. Mom shared the post with a caption about how blessed she was to have such a beautiful daughter finding love. I scrolled through the comments waiting to feel something. Happiness for my sister. Sadness at being excluded. Anything. But I just felt numb. The next day, Chloe called. "Hey, so I wanted you to hear this from me personally. Derek and I are engaged." Derek. 2 months ago, it had been Brad. Before that, Marcus. Chloe went through boyfriends like most people went through coffee, but I kept my voice neutral. "Congratulations, that's exciting." She launched into details about the proposal, the ring, Derek's plans. He was, according to her, a real estate developer with properties all over the state. He was going to take care of her. She'd never have to worry about money again. I let her talk, making appropriate sounds of interest. Then came the real reason for the call. "So we're planning an engagement party next month. I'm working with this amazing event planner, the one who did Kim Kardashian's baby shower. She's expensive but worth it. The thing is, Mom and Dad are tapped out right now. And I was hoping, since you're my sister and you're doing so well, maybe you could help cover the planner. It's only $10,000. I know that sounds like a lot, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You'd be helping make my dreams come true." $10,000. For an engagement party, for a relationship that was 8 weeks old. I closed my eyes and counted to 5. "Chloe, I can't afford that." Her voice changed instantly, all the fake sweetness draining away. "Can't or won't." She didn't wait for an answer. "You know what, I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd try to ruin my happiness. You've always been jealous of me. Always wanted what I have. And now, when I'm finally getting everything I've ever wanted, you can't even be happy for me. You're pathetic, Ava. A bitter, jealous, pathetic little woman who can't stand to see anyone else succeed." The venom in her voice was startling, even though I'd expected some version of this. "Chloe, I'm happy for you. I just can't spend $10,000 on a party." She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Right, because you're so broke. Please. You make good money, you have no kids, no responsibilities. You're just selfish. You've always been selfish. I don't know why I even bothered calling you. Do me a favor and don't come to the engagement party. I don't want your negative energy there anyway." She hung up. Journal entry 7. Chloe's engagement. Observations: new boyfriend Derek never mentioned before now her fiancé, after 2 months, immediately asked for $10,000 for party planner. When refused, responded with personal attacks and disinvitation from event. No consideration given to my finances or life circumstances. Accusation of jealousy used as weapon to deflect from unreasonable request. Conclusion: any life event is viewed as opportunity to extract money from me. The engagement party happened without me. I saw the photos on Facebook. It was indeed extravagant. Ice sculptures, champagne fountains, elaborate floral arrangements, a live band. Mom and Dad were in dozens of photos, beaming proudly. The comments section was full of people asking how they could afford such luxury. Someone joked that Derek must be loaded. I wondered who actually paid for it all. A week later, I got my answer when Mom called. Her voice was strained. "Ava, we need to talk about something serious. Your father and I put Chloe's engagement party on our credit cards because we wanted her to have something special. But now we can't make the minimum payments. We're going to lose the house if we can't pay this down. We need $5,000, not want, need." So there it was. They'd thrown a party they couldn't afford, banking on me bailing them out as I always had. When I didn't offer to pay up front, they'd gone into debt anyway, assuming I'd cover it on the back end. It was so predictable, it was almost boring. "Mom, I told you I couldn't afford to help with the party." Her voice rose. "This isn't about the party anymore. This is about your father and I losing our home, the home you grew up in. How can you be so cold? We're about to be on the street and you're lecturing us about budgets." "I can give you $500. Silence. Then, 500. "Did you hear what I said?" 5,000. "We need 5,000 or we lose everything." I held firm. 500 is what I have." She made a sound of disgust. "You're lying. You're punishing us because you're bitter about Chloe's happiness. You want us to suffer. What kind of daughter wants her parents to be homeless?" The manipulation was textbook. Paint themselves as victims, paint me as a villain, trigger my guilt and fear. But I'd been working with Dr. Reeves for months now. I recognized the patterns. "Mom, I love you, but I can't take responsibility for financial decisions you and Dad made. $500 is my offer." She hung up on me. 2 days later, I mailed a check for $500 with a note that said, "I hope this helps. Love, Ava." The check was cashed immediately. I never received a thank you. 3 weeks after that, Derek's true colors emerged. Turns out, he wasn't a real estate developer. He was a con artist who'd been using Chloe to try to access our family's supposed wealth. When he realized Chloe was actually broke and in debt, and that her supposedly wealthy sister wasn't going to fund their lifestyle, he vanished. Just disappeared one day, taking Chloe's laptop, her jewelry, and $2,000 she'd borrowed from Mom's emergency fund. Chloe was devastated. The Facebook post announcing the broken engagement was dramatic, full of betrayal and heartbreak and lessons learned about trusting the wrong people. The comments were sympathetic. Mom posted about how her poor baby had been taken advantage of by a terrible man. Within 24 hours of the breakup announcement, my phone rang. It was Chloe, crying hysterically. "He's gone! He took everything! I trusted him and he destroyed me." For just a moment, I felt genuine sympathy. Being betrayed hurts even if you saw it coming. "I'm sorry, Chloe. That's really awful." She cried for a few more minutes, then her voice shifted slightly. "I need to get away. I can't be here right now. Everything reminds me of him. I was looking at this wellness retreat in Sedona. It's supposed to be really healing. Just a week to process and recover. It's $7,000, but it includes accommodations and all meals and therapy sessions. I really need this, Ava. After what I've been through, I deserve something good." And there it was. Less than 5 minutes from crying about being scammed to asking me to fund a luxury vacation. "Chloe, I can't help with that." Her tears stopped instantly. "Are you serious right now? I was just emotionally destroyed by someone I loved, and you won't even help me heal? What is wrong with you?" Her voice was getting louder. "You know what I see. What this is. You're glad Derek hurt me. You're happy I'm suffering because you can't stand when good things happen to me. You're a miserable, bitter bitch who wants everyone else to be as pathetic as you are." The words should have hurt. A year ago, they would have destroyed me. but I'd heard variations of this speech so many times now that it barely registered. I hope you feel better soon, Chloe. I really do. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail screaming about how I was killing her, how my refusal to help was causing her suicidal thoughts, how her death would be my fault. I saved the voicemail and sent it to Dr. Reeves and Marcus. Marcus listened to it and immediately said, "This is abusive behavior. If she continues making threats, you may need to consider a restraining order." The idea seemed extreme. This was my sister, but Dr. Reeves agreed with Marcus. Ava threatening suicide to manipulate someone into giving you money is emotional abuse. It doesn't matter that she's your sister. This behavior is not okay. I filed the voicemail away, hoping it wouldn't come to that. September arrived. 9 months since I'd won the lottery. 9 months of testing and observing and documenting. My journal was filled with entries, every single one telling the same story. My family loved what I could provide, not who I was. They were kind when I gave them money and hostile when I didn't. They celebrated my successes only in terms of how it benefited them. They knew nothing about my real life, my struggles, my dreams, my fears, and they'd never bothered to ask. I was meeting with Marcus and Sharon and Dr. Reeves, what we'd started calling my support team, for a review session. We went through my journal entries chronologically. Marcus read them aloud in his calm, professional voice, and hearing them like that, one after another, the pattern was undeniable. When he finished, he set down the journal and looked at me. "So, Ava, what have you learned?" I took a deep breath. "I've learned that I don't have a family. I have people who share my DNA and who have successfully conditioned me to feel responsible for their happiness and their finances. But they don't love me. They've never loved me." Saying it out loud made it real, made it true. I started crying, not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that just wouldn't stop. Dr. Reeves handed me tissues and let me cry. "It's okay to grieve this. You've lost something important, the family you hoped you had, even if they never actually existed." Sharon spoke up, her voice gentle. "What do you want to do now?" "You've got the documentation. You've got the evidence. What comes next?" I wiped my eyes. "I want to be done. I want to end this. But I don't know how." Marcus leaned forward. "I have a suggestion. One final test, the biggest one. Something that will force them to reveal themselves completely and give you the closure you need to walk away." I looked at him. "What kind of test?" He smiled slightly. "Tell them the truth. Tell them you won the lottery. But do it strategically, in a controlled environment. Watch how they react. Watch what they say. And then, when you've seen exactly who they are with the mask completely off, you make your final decision about what kind of relationship, if any, you want with them going forward." The idea was terrifying and perfect. One last chance for them to surprise me, to show me I was wrong, to demonstrate even a shred of genuine love. But if they didn't, if they reacted the way I expected, I'd have absolute clarity. No more doubt, no more guilt, no more wondering if I was the problem. "When?" I asked. Marcus checked his calendar. "Let's give it another 2 weeks. That gets you to late September, almost exactly 1 year, full circle. In the meantime, I want you to prepare yourself emotionally. This is going to hurt Ava. Even though you know what's coming, it's going to hurt to see it confirmed." Those 2 weeks felt like the longest of my life. I went through my days in a strange fog, knowing that everything was about to change. Then, on a Tuesday morning, 9.5 months after buying that lottery ticket, I got a phone call from Mom. Her voice was weak, trembling, barely above a whisper. "Ava, sweetheart, I need to tell you something. I didn't want to worry you, but I can't hide it anymore." My heart started pounding. "What is it, Mom? What's wrong?" She took a shaky breath. "I have cancer, honey. Breast cancer stage 3. The doctors say I need surgery immediately or it's going to spread. The surgery is $50,000. Our insurance won't cover it. They're calling it a pre-existing condition because I missed a mammogram 5 years ago." The world tilted. Cancer. My mother had cancer. Every instinct screamed at me to help, to find a way to save her. "Mom, are you sure? Have you gotten a second opinion?" She started crying. "I've seen 3 doctors, baby. They all say the same thing. If I don't get this surgery in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to die." I'm your mother. I'm dying. Please, you have to help me. I know it's a lot of money, but I'll die without it. You have to help me." My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. $50,000. I had millions. I could pay for this surgery in cash and never notice the money was gone. But something made me pause. Something wasn't right. "Mom, you've never missed a mammogram. You're religious about them because of Grandma." There was a brief silence. "Well, I missed one 5 years ago. I don't remember why. That's not important. What's important is that I need surgery and I need it now. Ava, please. I'm begging you. I'm your mother. Save my life." I felt like I was going to vomit. "Mom, I need to call you back. I'm at work and I can't talk right now." She protested, her voice rising in panic. "There's no time. I need an answer now. I need the money today. Ava, I'm dying. Your mother is dying and you're worried about work." I couldn't breathe. "I'll call you back in an hour." I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I called Marcus immediately. When he answered, the words tumbled out of me. "My mom says she has cancer, stage 3, needs $50,000 for surgery, says insurance won't cover it, says she'll die without it." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Ava, before you do anything, we need to verify this. What hospital?" I told him the hospital she'd mentioned. "Okay, call them. Pretend you're her daughter calling to ask about scheduling her surgery. See what they say. If it's real, we'll help her, but if it's not..." He didn't finish the sentence. I didn't want to make that call. Because if I made it and found out she was lying about having cancer, about dying, about the most unforgivable thing imaginable, there would be no coming back from that. But I had to know. I dialed the hospital with shaking fingers. A receptionist answered cheerfully. I explained that I was calling on behalf of my mother, Evelyn Harper, to inquire about her upcoming surgery schedule. The sound of typing. Then, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm not showing any scheduled surgeries for Evelyn Harper. Let me check our patient records. When was her last appointment?" My voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not sure exactly. Recently, more typing. I'm showing her last visit was 3 weeks ago for a routine physical. She's not currently being treated for anything." I tried 2 more hospitals in the area. Same result. My mother was not a patient. She was not scheduled for surgery. She did not have cancer. She had lied about dying to manipulate me into giving her $50,000. I sat in my car in the parking garage outside my office building, the phone in my lap, and I felt something inside me die. Not dramatically, not explosively, just a quiet final severing of whatever thread had still connected me to the idea that these people were my family. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, my phone rang. It was Mom calling back. I answered. My voice was completely flat. "I called the hospital. I called 3 hospitals. You don't have cancer." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Not shocked silence, caught silence. How dare you? You called to check on your dying mother like she's some kind of liar." Her voice was rising. "I am sick. The hospital made a mistake. You're trying to kill me by not believing me." "Stop!" My voice was so cold it surprised me. "Just stop. I know you're lying. I verified it with multiple hospitals. You are not sick. You do not have cancer. You lied about dying to manipulate me into giving you money." She switched tactics immediately. The indignation vanished, replaced by desperation. Okay, I don't have cancer, but we're in serious trouble, Ava. Your father and I are going to lose the house. We're drowning in debt. I only lied because I knew you wouldn't help otherwise. You've become so cold, so distant. This was the only way to get through to you." I felt nothing. "Goodbye, Mom." Her voice turned to screaming. "You can't hang up on me. I'm your mother. You owe me. After everything we did for you, we raised you, we fed you, we gave you a roof over your head. You ungrateful little bitch. You're killing me. You're killing your own mother." I hung up. Then I blocked her number. The silence that followed was profound. Dad called 30 seconds later. I answered. "You heartless snake," he snarled before I could even say hello. "Your mother is sick and you're calling her a liar. What kind of monster are you?" His voice was shaking with rage. "We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us. You're dead to me. You hear me, dead. You're no daughter of mine." I hung up and blocked his number too. Chloe texted from a new number I didn't recognize. You're a horrible person. Mom is crying so hard she can't breathe. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. If anything happens to them, it's your fault. You're a murderer. I hope you rot in hell. I blocked that number and every subsequent number they tried to reach me from. Over the next 3 days, they tried everything. Calls from relatives I barely knew asking me to reconsider, telling me I was breaking up the family. Emails with subject lines like, "Please read your mother is dying," and "How could you abandon us?" Text messages from Chloe's friends, people I'd never met, telling me what a terrible sister I was. I deleted them all. I felt oddly calm. The pain would come later, I knew. But in that moment, I just felt clear. Dr. Reeves had warned me this would happen. When you set a boundary with toxic people, they'll escalate. They'll try every tool in their manipulation toolbox. You have to stay strong. On day 4, Mom and Chloe showed up at my apartment. I heard them before I saw them. Loud banging on my door, voices raised in the hallway. "Ava, open this door right now. We know you're in there." I looked through the peephole. Mom and Chloe were both there, faces red and angry. My neighbor across the hall had opened their door and was watching nervously. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Then I called 911. "There are 2 people harassing me at my apartment door. I've asked them to leave, but they won't. I'm afraid they're going to try to break in." The operator asked if I knew them. "They're family members I've cut contact with. They're not welcome here." She assured me police were on their way. I could hear Mom yelling through the door. "We're not leaving until you talk to us. You owe us that much, after everything we've done for you." When the police arrived 12 minutes later, I watched through the peephole as they questioned Mom and Chloe. I opened the door, gave my statement, showed them the texts and voicemails, including Chloe's suicide threats. The officers looked uncomfortable but professional. One of them turned to Mom and Chloe. "Ma'am, you need to leave. This is her residence and she's asked you to go. If you come back, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Mom started crying, the performance of a lifetime. "She's my daughter. I have a right to see my daughter." The officer shook his head. "Not if she doesn't want to see you. Please, leave now." I watched them walk away, Chloe throwing venomous looks over her shoulder. When they were gone, I thanked the officers and closed the door. Then I called Marcus. "I need a restraining order for all 3 of them." The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Marcus had compiled everything: the journal entries, the recordings, the texts, the voicemails, the fake cancer diagnosis. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s who read through the documentation with increasing displeasure. When my family's lawyer tried to argue that this was just a misunderstanding, that family disputes shouldn't involve the courts, the judge cut him off. "Your clients fabricated a terminal illness to extort money from the petitioner. They've made threats, engaged in harassment, and refused to respect reasonable boundaries. I'm granting the restraining order, 500 feet at all times. No contact of any kind." Mom started crying in the courtroom. Dad shouted something about justice being dead in this country. Chloe just glared at me with such pure hatred that I actually felt it like a physical thing. But I felt something else too. Relief. It was really over. They couldn't reach me anymore. I was free. That night, I sat in my apartment and let myself finally fully grieve. I cried for the mother I'd never had, the father who'd never protected me, the sister who'd never loved me. I cried for the little girl who'd gotten used crayons for her birthday and convinced herself it was fine. I cried for the teenager who'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. I cried for the woman who'd spent a decade funding other people's lives at the expense of her own. And then, when I was done crying, I started planning. I'd been waiting for this moment, the moment when I could use my money to build the life I actually wanted. I gave notice at my job 2 months like a professional. I found a beautiful condo in Seattle, a city where no one knew my name or my history. I hired movers and packed up my life. On my last day in Chicago, I drove past my childhood home one final time. The lights were on. I could see figures moving behind the curtains. I felt nothing. No sadness, no longing, no regret. Just a distant sort of acknowledgement that those people existed in the world, and I didn't have to care. Seattle was everything I needed. I bought a place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. I woke up every morning and made coffee in my gleaming kitchen and watched the sunrise over Puget Sound. I joined a gym, took up pottery, started volunteering at a women's shelter. I made friends. Real friends who knew me as Ava the book lover Ava, the terrible dancer Ava, who always burned the cookies but made excellent pasta. Some of them eventually learned about the lottery, but only after months of friendship. And their reactions were always the same. Concern first. Are you okay? That must have been overwhelming. Not excitement about what I could buy them, just care for my well-being. I started using the money in ways that mattered. The scholarship fund I'd dreamed about. I called it the Self-Made Scholars Program. Full rides to college for students who were working their way through school without family support. I attended the first award ceremony wearing dark glasses and a hat sitting in the back. I watched 5 students accept their awards, watched them cry with relief and joy, watched their faces when they realized they could actually do this, could actually go to college without drowning in debt. One girl's speech made me sob. I've been working 3 jobs to save for community college. I thought that was the best I could hope for. This scholarship means I can go to a real university. It means I can breathe. Thank you to whoever created this program. You saved my life. I also started quietly paying off medical debt for families in need. Real families with real emergencies. Cancer patients who actually had cancer. Kids who needed surgery. Parents drowning in bills from a lifetime of health crises. I worked with a nonprofit that vetted the cases and distributed the funds anonymously. Every month I'd get letters from recipients. They never knew who I was, but they'd write thank you notes to the anonymous donor who'd saved them. Those letters filled a folder in my desk. On bad days, I'd read them and remember that money could be used for good, that helping people who actually needed help felt completely different from being exploited. 6 months into my new life, I met Josh at a community garden volunteer day. He was a 3rd-grade teacher, patient and funny with kind eyes and dirt under his fingernails from planting tomatoes. We struck up a conversation about the best vegetables for Seattle's climate and somehow ended up talking for 3 hours. He asked for my number. I gave it to him, my heart pounding. I'd been on exactly 3 dates in my entire life, all of them years ago. All of them disasters because I'd been too broke and too stressed to be good company. Josh and I went out for coffee, then dinner, then a hike, then a movie. We fell into an easy rhythm. He made me laugh until my sides hurt. He listened when I talked. He remembered little details I mentioned in passing. 4 months in, I knew I had to tell him about the money. We were getting serious, and he deserved to know. I invited him to my condo for dinner. He'd never been there before. We'd always met at restaurants or his small apartment. When he walked in and saw the view, his eyes went wide. Ava, this place is incredible. How can you afford, not that it's my business, but... He trailed off, looking embarrassed. I took a deep breath. I won the lottery. About a year and a half ago. $12 million. I watched his face carefully waiting for the shift, the calculation, the sudden interest. It didn't come. He just looked confused. Wait, really? Why didn't you tell me? I explained everything. The money, the decision to keep it secret, my family's history of exploitation, the year of testing the fake cancer, the restraining orders, all of it. When I finished, his first question was, "Are you okay?" Not what are you going to do with the money, not can I have some, just concern for my well-being. That must have been so painful, to discover your family was like that. He pulled me into a hug. I'm so sorry you went through that. We talked for hours that night. He asked thoughtful questions about how I was processing the trauma, whether I was in therapy, what my life looked like now. He didn't treat me differently. He didn't suddenly suggest expensive restaurants or vacations. He was just Josh, same as always. A week later on our next date, he insisted on paying for dinner as he always had. The fact that you have money doesn't mean I stop treating you right, he said with a smile. That was when I knew I was falling in love with him, not because of some grand gesture, but because he saw me as a person, not a bank account. A year after moving to Seattle, almost 2 years after winning the lottery, I got a message on Facebook from a name I didn't recognize, Sarah Collins. The message was short. Hi, Ava. I'm your mom's cousin's daughter. We met once when you were little at a family reunion. I heard what happened with your family. I wanted you to know that not everyone agrees with how they treated you. What they did was wrong. You deserved better. I hope you're doing well. It was such a small thing, but it meant the world. Acknowledgement from someone who shared my DNA that I wasn't the villain in this story. I wrote back. We started talking. Sarah had her own complicated relationship with that side of the family. She'd been the black sheep for going to therapy and setting boundaries. She understood. We became email pen pals, then phone friends. She visited Seattle and we had lunch. It was strange and wonderful to connect with someone from my family who actually saw me, who didn't want anything from me, who just wanted to know me. She told me what had happened after I left, how Mom and Dad had painted me as a selfish monster who'd abandoned her dying mother, how Chloe told everyone I'd stolen money from her, how the whole extended family had chosen sides. Most of them believed their version, Sarah said. But a few of us know better. We've seen how they operate. We're glad you got out. I asked if Mom really thought she could get away with the fake cancer story. Sarah shook her head. I don't think she thought that far ahead. I think she was desperate and went with the nuclear option. When it backfired, she had to double down. Admitting she lied would mean admitting everything else, too. I asked about how they were doing now. Sarah hesitated. Not great. They're in serious debt. Had to sell the house and downsize to an apartment. Chloe's living with them. None of them can hold down steady work because they've burned so many bridges. But they still won't admit any fault. It's everyone else's fault. Yours especially. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite pity. Maybe sadness that they'd learned nothing changed, nothing taken no responsibility. They'd destroyed their relationships, their finances, their lives, and still couldn't see their own role in it. Do you think they'll ever understand what they did wrong? I asked Sarah. She thought about it. Honestly, no, because understanding would require them to see you as a person instead of a resource, and I don't think they're capable of that. It was the truth I'd already known, but hearing it from someone else helped. In November, the Self-Made Scholars Program gave out its second round of scholarships. 10 students this time, double the first year. I attended the ceremony again, still anonymous, still sitting in the back. One of the recipients was a young woman named Maria who reminded me so much of myself. She gave a speech about working at a grocery store and a restaurant while taking community college classes about her family who couldn't help financially, about the grinding exhaustion of trying to build a better life with no support system. She talked about the scholarship like it was a miracle. Someone out there believed in me when no one else did, she said through tears. Someone saw my struggle and decided I was worth investing in. I'm going to make them proud. I cried silently in my seat. This was what money should do. This was what help should look like. Not enabling dysfunction, not funding irresponsibility, but empowering people who were already fighting hard to succeed. After the ceremony, I slipped out before anyone could approach me. But I felt more fulfilled than I ever had from all those years of giving to my family. Because this gift was going somewhere. It could grow, could multiply, could change lives. I'd broken the cycle of exploitation and created something beautiful instead. Josh and I got engaged that December. He proposed during a hike, no ring yet, because he wanted us to pick it out together, just him on one knee in the mud, asking if I'd marry him. I said yes before he even finished the question. We were planning a small wedding, just close friends, maybe Sarah and a couple of Josh's relatives. I didn't have to navigate family drama or obligatory invitations. I didn't have to worry about Mom making a scene or Chloe demanding to be maid of honor. I could just focus on marrying someone who loved me for me. It felt impossibly simple and impossibly rare. One night in January, almost exactly 2 years after my last contact with my family, I was looking through old photos on my laptop. Pictures from childhood, from college, from holidays. I looked at those images of little Ava, always slightly to the side, never quite the focus, and I wanted to reach through time and hug her. Tell her it wasn't her fault. Tell her she deserved better. Tell her that one day she'd be free. I thought about that conversation with Marcus so long ago. Money doesn't change people, he'd said. It reveals who they've always been. He was right. The money hadn't made my family greedy. It had simply exposed a greed that had always existed, and in exposing it, it had freed me. I thought about what I'd lost, the fantasy of a loving family, the hope that they might change, the comfort of familiar dysfunction. I'd lost all of that, but I'd gained so much more. Self-respect, real friendships, a partner who valued me, the ability to help people who actually needed it. Peace. God, the peace. I woke up every morning without that knot of dread in my stomach, without checking my phone for the next crisis. I went to bed without worrying about which emergency would arrive tomorrow. I existed without the constant weight of everyone else's problems on my shoulders. That was worth more than $12 million. That was priceless. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I'd tried harder to maintain the relationships, set better boundaries while keeping them in my life, found some middle ground. The answer is no. There is no middle ground with people who see you as an object. There is no boundary that will be respected by people who believe they're entitled to everything you have. You can't negotiate with emotional terrorists. You can't reason with people who refuse to see you as human. The only option is to walk away. And I don't regret walking away. Not for 1 second. I regret that I had that family in the first place. I regret that I spent 32 years trying to earn love that was never available. I regret all the money I gave before I learned better. But I don't regret the test, the documentation, the evidence gathering, because it gave me absolute clarity. When I finally walked away, I walked away knowing with complete certainty that I'd tried everything, that I'd given them every chance, and that they'd failed every single test. I walked away without guilt, without doubt, without that nagging voice asking, what if I'd just tried harder? I tried hard enough, more than hard enough, for my entire life. The money gave me the freedom to discover who I really was when I wasn't performing the role of family ATM. Turns out I'm funny, I'm creative, I'm a good friend. I'm generous when my generosity is valued rather than demanded. I like pottery and hiking and terrible reality TV. I'm afraid of spiders but fascinated by octopuses. I cry during commercials about shelter dogs. I burn cookies but make excellent pasta sauce. I'm a whole, complex, interesting person. And for 32 years, none of that mattered to my family because none of it was profitable to them. Now I'm surrounded by people who know all those details about me, who remember them, who care about them. People who don't need me to be anything other than myself. Last week, I got a letter, not an email, an actual handwritten letter forwarded from my old Chicago address to my lawyer's office to avoid violating the restraining order. The return address was Mom and Dad's. My hands shook as I opened it. It was from Mom, her handwriting shakier than I remembered. The letter started with an apology. She was sorry for lying about the cancer. She understood why I was hurt. She and Dad had been going to counseling, working on themselves. Chloe had moved out and was apparently doing better, working steadily, seeing a therapist. They'd learned a lot about boundaries and respect and family dynamics. They wanted a chance to rebuild our relationship. They missed me. I read the letter 3 times looking for the catch. Was this growth? Was it possible they'd actually changed? Then I got to the last paragraph. We know we can't undo the past, but we're hoping you can find it in your heart to help us with a fresh start. We're struggling financially after the downsizing, and Dad's health isn't great. If you could help us with just 6 months of rent while we get on our feet, we'd be so grateful. It would mean so much to know our daughter still cares. And there it was. Buried in the apology, wrapped in therapy language and promises of change, was another request for money. They hadn't changed at all. They'd just learned better vocabulary. I showed the letter to Dr. Reeves. She sighed. I'm sorry, Ava. I know part of you was hoping. I was hoping. Stupidly, impossibly, against all logic and evidence, I'd been hoping. But hope isn't enough to change people who don't want to change. I wrote one final letter in response. I kept it short. I received your letter. I'm glad you're in counseling. I hope it helps you, but I won't be resuming contact and I won't be providing financial support. I wish you well, but from a distance. Please don't contact me again. I mailed it and felt that chapter close completely. This time there was no grief, just a quiet acceptance. I'd done everything I could. The rest was their journey, not mine. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own well-being? Have you ever looked at the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally and realized the only condition is money? Drop a comment and tell me your story. And if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is walk away from people who are destroying you, even when they share your blood, especially when they share your blood. Like this video, if you believe that you owe yourself love and protection first before anyone else, because at the end of the day, the family you choose is often better than the family you're born into. This is my story, and I don't regret a single second of it.